I can't get it from unless God gives it to me. I don't have it. We're in the same situation. People here don't really care till it happens, and then they panic. That's what we're going to see.
Well, it's unfortunate that you have a lot of people who have bought off on this consumer-driven thing where it's buy, and they always want the latest gadget, and it's not necessarily in anyone's best interest when you look at the amount of resources that this country is using. And I mean, I'm going to be honest. I am a person of minimum creature comforts. I like to stay warm, and I like good food, and I like to have a nice place to live. But as far as going out and spending for a lot of superfluous things, and I think that unfortunately we have a consumer-driven economy that caters to that type of mindset. People need to stop and ask themselves, do I really need this? And what kind of resources are we expending so that I can be, have some trinket or something to play with? Hey, that's my point of view, but I think that there are too many people that are doing that.
Well,
I think that they keep pushing that type of negative consumerism. I'll call it that.
Well, you know what? You just nailed it, because, I was reading a report today. They said that we are very close to a financial bubble, in the market bursting again. And people don't realize it. I mean, the feds are having to pump money in to keep the economy going, drastically amounts of money every day, that they're lowering the interest rate to the point now, again, I don't think that's going to save us this time. I think we're going to get caught after the election. And I could be totally wrong, but I think we're going to get caught with our pants down way worse than the housing bubble ever was.
I have a theory on that, and it's just a theory. And for your listeners that are listening, I'm not anti-Trump. All of us in the band are very politically independent. I respect the office of the President of the United States, but I have a theory on what's going on, and the theory is this. You keep looking at the amount of money that's being pumped in, and I'm talking about billions of fiat currency that has absolutely nothing to back it up, by a private organization known as the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not part of the government, never has been. It's a private banking institution. It's part of a global banking institution. And globally, the same thing is going on. They are pumping billions and billions and billions into the economies of the world, not just the United States. Sometime, somewhere, this house of cards is going to fall apart. And when that happens, and I'm thinking it could happen as close as 2020, but my crystal ball's broken, so I'm not going to swear by that. We're all going to be in a world hurt.
Well, what concerns me is what happens if in 2020, mid-2020, they come out with new money and they devalue our current money, and you get this.
Remember, they came out. Oh gosh, this was back in 2010. There was the talk of the Amero, and they were talking about this happened. Oh, remember when Fox was president of Mexico and Mulroney was the prime minister of Canada, and Bush Jr. was in office, and they all got together and they had a meeting, and a lot of it had to do with forming what they called it the North American Union, where Canada, the United States, and Mexico would all form a union, and they had a currency that they were going to come out with. It was called the Amero. And when the Amero came out, they were going to give, I think it was like $10 to every one Amero or something like that. So yeah, there was this move afoot to do something like that as a step towards a one world government. And I remember when the one thing that really bothered me, and a lot of people who don't know their history don't realize this, is that when that meeting took place between Bush, Mulrooney, and Fox, Bush entered into an agreement with Canada and Mexico that if, quote, social unrest broke out in 6 American cities simultaneously, that under a United Nations charter, troops from both Canada and Mexico would come into this country. And you look at the situation that we're in Afghanistan today, a lot of our troops are fighting under a United Nations charter mandate. They have UN patches, not American patches, on their uniforms. And there are a lot of U.S. troops that aren't real happy about that. And I can understand that.
Well, yeah, I can see it. You know, another thing, in our own country, I think North Carolina, there is a base there that is full of nothing but UN troops. Figure that one out.
I've read about that, yeah. And they said there's something like, was it 15,000 of them?
Oh, yeah.
That came in under the auspices of training, but they came in a couple of years ago, and they're still here. So, you know, what do people like Gary and Tom know?
Yeah, I don't know anything other than what I researched. The land they're on doesn't even belong to us anymore. We gave it to them. So
yeah.
I
have a problem with that because it seems like what we used to think of as a sovereign nation is being taken apart little by little, and there is this huge move afoot. From what I've experienced, to in the last 30 years, little by little, they have dumbed down the American public, and they've done everything that they could to make sure that they don't understand or they don't know what's going on around them, and a lot of them don't care, and that's what bothers me.
Well, you know why? It's because we've been brainwashed by the media. We've been brainwashed by Washington, D.C. And people, I don't understand people, but it's been that way going back from the Roman days all the way up for World War II with the Jews going into their extermination camps and all that. The people are funny. You know, long as it doesn't affect them, they really don't care. Long as they get their own paycheck and live in their own little, world, in their own vacuum, they don't really care what's going on. And if they do care, they don't really do anything about it. And that is really what is scary. Is a way, I don't want to turn it into a political show, but what's going on in our country right now, I can't understand the people. Why aren't they asking questions? Why is, it's weird. I feel like we're giving up our rights, and it's going to happen shortly.
Well, you're bringing up something that both Charlie and Corey have discussed with me. In the ancient text of Egypt, there is a document, and it goes by 2 names. It's either the Lament of Thoth or the Lament of Hermes, and it has to do with a prophecy of the ancient Egyptian Thoth. And what he basically says is everything that you're saying. This has happened over and over and over again, where you have old souls, and what I mean by old souls are souls that are experienced, they're knowledgeable, they come in, they inhabit a human body. It's like the founding fathers came in and they put together wisely the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, called the Bill of Rights. And they did that for a very good reason, because they understood human nature, and they understood that there are those out there that if they can have it all, they're going to do it. And you've seen this over and over again. It goes all the way back to probably Atlantis, where people of very positive intent have come along spiritually. They've set these civilizations up. And then little by little by little, you have, I'll call them spiritual forces that have come in that have basically eroded little by little the thought processes of those civilizations and those nations. And it didn't happen overnight. It took a long time in coming, and it was measured, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they had a plan to do it. But if you want to have some fun sometime, go to your internet and look up the Lament of Thoth or Hermes, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
And that is what's extremely scary, because I think we're now at the point of no return. I really do. I think after the elections, we're going to run into something that I think a lot of people just are not going to be able to handle. You're going to find a lot of the banks are going to fail. You're going to find people losing their jobs. I mean, the hiring and stuff was doing really good, but now that's not doing what it was doing, and that our economy is so far in the hole right now because we spent so much more out of Washington, D.C. than we could ever pay back. It's scary. It's so scary between that and the climate changes and turning our heads on the climate changes. That's the other issue I'm having right now. I mean, we got major things we're going on. You hear about the wall? That these people are coming through the wall like nothing. They go spend $100 for a power tool, and they just cut their way through within a matter of minutes, and they can come right through our country.
I saw that on the internet last night.
Yeah. So much on a wall.
One thing, Gary, that I think that, okay, you and I have talked about the gloom and doom scenarios, and they are very real, and that's something that we as a band are aware of, but the saving grace to that is this. I think that, we are going to go on a real nasty roller coaster ride. I think that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but I think it's going to get real ugly before it gets bright, and I firmly believe that because I honestly think that there are forces, and I talked about this before on your show, about intelligences that are extremely malevolent. You look at all those people that have been on your show that have been abducted, that talk about the really horrific things that happen to them by entities that have zero empathy, and that's true. That's a fact. It's documented. It's happened over and over again. But I think that the problem that people need to realize, and I say this with all sincerity, is that there is a positive end. There is a positive intelligence out there. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be a part of a creative force that's doing an expose on all this stuff. I mean, and that's really what we're doing. It's none of us though, from a spiritual perspective, forget that even though we're overwhelmed by bad guys and they're all over the place, there is a positive force out there. And the problem is that globally there has been a move afoot through the press, through the newspapers, through any entity that can get it out there to put out a total negative picture of what's going on. So people forget that there is an upside and a positive side to this cosmos. And the problem is that we're so inundated as a species on this planet with absolute, excuse my vernacular, bullshit that's basically put out every single day, that people forget that there is an upside, and so they get into this I'll call it a global depression mode, because they don't think that there's any way out. But I think that what they need to realize is that all of this is happening for a reason, and I think that your show is going to be instrumental in having the people that you have on to do exposés on everything that you talk about, because when the light bulb comes on and they start thinking, there is another side to this, and knowledge is power, and the more that you understand about how you're being manipulated, there is a way out. But I think collectively, as a species, the light bulb's going to have to come on globally, and people are going to have to say, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. I'm not going along with the program.
Now, hey, Tom, we're going to have to take a break for 2.5 minutes, though. If you want to get a cup of java or something cool to drink, I'm going to put you on mute. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio.